Thomas sat quietly with his eyes closed, simmering in the warm sun. After being shunted into the shed by one of the friendly switching diesels, he was now settling down in the shed the railway had generously provided him. His crew was putting out his fire so he could have a good rest. Just as his fireman stepped off the footplate, he heard the noise of an engine slink up beside him. Then came a voice from the engine. "Hello there. I haven't seen you around here before. Who are you?" Thomas opened an eye and looked over. There on the track next to him was a small diesel. He had 4 small wheels, a square cab, and a sturdy buffer beam. Its paint was black and dusty, and the lettering on his side read 3907, Pennsylvania, in bright gold lettering. He smiled. "Hey, you're that Thomas fellow, aren't you? My name's Philip. It's nice to meet you." "Likewise," Thomas replied, not fully invested in the conversation. He was tired and wanted to rest. There was a moment of silence, until Philip spoke again. "I love that color. Bright blue definitely sticks out in a crowd, especially here. But that aside, I prefer my black, honestly. The best color for hard-working engines," Philip said in a teasing tone. Thomas looked over. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Oh, nothing. Just seems more like decoration to me. Not the proper color for a heavy machine. Makes you look like a toy," Philip said with a smirk. Philip's driver then leaned out of the cab. "All right. Now, Philip, that's enough chit-chat. We got work to do." "Oh, yes. Yes, driver, you're completely right. I suppose I'll be off then." Philip started rolling away, but called back to Thomas one last time. "Why don't you do some hard work for a change?" Philip oiled off, laughing and chortling away, leaving Thomas seething. "Pah!" said Thomas at last. "Who does that diesel think he is?" His driver just laughed. "I think he reminds me of someone," the fireman joined in. "Perhaps a cheeky blue engine who thinks blue is the only proper color for a really useful engine." "Oh, be quiet," said Thomas, rolling his eyes. "I mean, could you ever imagine me in matte black? Yeah, no thank you. I like my blue paint." The driver just chuckled. "Anyway, me and the fireman will be off. Now, get some good rest and don't let Philip's jokes bother you too bad." And with that, the driver and fireman left Thomas in the shed. A little while later, Thomas was still in the shed and had forgotten about Philip and was sleeping soundly, until he heard the clanging of a bell. At first it was quiet and far away. Then it slowly got louder with low, deep chuffing accompanying it. Thomas looked to see a big engine backing into the shed. Just like Philip, he was painted all black with the words Pennsylvania on his timber. He came to a stop, his brakes making a deafening screech as he came to a halt beside Thomas. The engine looked over and seemed to be a tad embarrassed. "Oh, please excuse me. I didn't mean to wake you up," he said. Thomas yawned in reply. "It's all right. I'm not tired anymore. I'm Thomas. What's your name?" "Well, howdy there, Thomas. I'm Hank. Pleasure to meet you," Hank puffed. "Nice to meet you, too," he smiled back. Thomas liked Hank. He certainly seemed friendly. They talked with each other for a while, until they were joking and laughing with each other like old friends. Soon after, purring of a diesel filled the air as Philip showed up pulling some boxcars. He blew his horn and called out to Thomas. "Hello again. Still resting, I see. When are you going to do some proper work like me?" And he rolled past laughing again. Thomas was fuming. "I see you met Philip." "Oh, that horrid engine. I swear if I see him again, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. He's like that with everyone. Just ignore it." Thomas didn't care. He was still fuming and wanted to tell Philip what he could do with his proper work. The next morning, Thomas had woken up and was filling up with coal. Then Thomas saw Philip going up to him. Thomas's face curled into a grimace. "Not this engine again," he puffed to himself as Philip rolled up. "Morning, Thomas. I see you finally decided to get moving. Going to try to do some actual work for a change." Philip smirked. "Why, yes, actually, I am. I'm to board an excursion passenger train later today. It's very important," said Thomas sternly. "Is that so?" Philip smirked. "Well, if you have some free time for a while, maybe I could show you some proper work in the yard." "No, thank you," Thomas wheezed crossly. "This is an important train to pull, and I'd rather not disappoint the passengers meddling with your nonsense." "Well, I don't see why not," interjected the driver. "Our train isn't for a few hours, plus the yard is in view of the station. It could be an interesting photo opportunity for the enthusiast." Thomas shot his driver a scowl as Philip laughed. "Well, what's stopping you now? Do you think that you aren't able to handle it?" Thomas and Philip rolled into the yard. There were lots of tracks and lots of freight cars. Thomas found it slightly intimidating, but he didn't let it show. "Pah! This is nothing. I could sort this yard with my eyes closed," Thomas boasted as he backed onto a line of cars. Philip didn't tell him, but the brakes were all on. Thomas coupled up and tried to pull away, but they didn't budge. Thomas pulled as hard as he could. His wheels spun in place, but the cars didn't move at all. He came to a stop, his face bright red. Philip roared with laughter. "Shut up!" Thomas whistled. The driver went back and undid the brakes so that Thomas could have another try. He pulled and pulled as hard as he could. The cars were much heavier than the ones he was used to, but slowly he got the line moving. Thomas moved only a few yards before the weight became too much for him, and he ran out of steam. He was very tired. "How's it feel to do hard work?" "No big deal. I do this every day," said Philip with a grin on his face. "All right then. Your turn." He paused and looked at Thomas. Philip hesitated for a moment. Oh, yeah, that's nothing. Watch this," he said as he backed onto another line of cars. What Philip had neglected to mention is that he would only take a few cars at a time. Philip coupled up to the train and pulled as hard as he could. His wheels slipped, but he kept tugging and pulling. Pulling and tugging until the coupling snapped, sending Philip rocketing forward and right off the track. Philip came to a stop on the tracks right in front of the station. "Oh, nuts," growled Philip in frustration. Now it was Thomas who was laughing. "Oh dear, Philip. Not cut out for hard work, I see." Philip groaned again until he felt a slight rumbling on the track. At first it was just a little vibration, but it seemed to be getting more and more intense with every passing moment. That's when it hit him. He was standing right in the way of an oncoming express train. The deep rumbling of the tracks got louder as Philip's driver jumped out of the cab and ran for cover, leaving poor Philip shouting in terror. Thomas realized what was about to happen and sprang into action. His drivers quickly secured a chain between Thomas and Philip, and he pulled with all of his might. Philip slowly started rolling backwards, but the oncoming train got louder as it came into view. Thomas' wheels dug into the rails, trying to get as much traction as possible. "Hurry!" Philip cried, as he saw the train speeding closer. With each moment, the engine drew nearer and nearer. Philip shut his eyes, and with one last effort, Thomas pulled Philip out of the way just as the engine roared past, leaving only a cloud of dust and a very shaken-up Philip. Soon after, Philip was re-railed, and Thomas was taking him to the works to be looked over for any damage. Philip was quiet for most of the journey until he finally spoke up. "Thank you for saving me, and sorry I was rude to you." "Oh, that's all right. All is forgiven," Thomas smiled. "The truth is, I really do think your paint is grand. It makes you look special. The truth is, I've never really liked my black paint. I've always wanted to be some special color, like all the other diesels from the other companies," Philip said sadly. On the Fat Controllers Railway, they let you be any color you want. Hey, Philip, if you could pick any color, what would you choose? Thomas asked. Philip thought for a moment. I've always liked green, but I also like yellow. It's between those two, but I wouldn't be able to make up my mind. Even if, I'll probably be stuck with this black paint until I'm scrapped, said Philip, looking down at his buffer beam. Thomas felt bad for Philip. Well, there's no harm in asking, right? Who knows? If you ask, they might just give you your own special colors. You really think so? Maybe. But you won't know until you try, said Thomas. A few days later, Thomas was backing into the sheds when he heard the familiar purring of a diesel rolling up. He looked over to see a yellow and green diesel beside him. Philip, is that you? Asked Thomas. They let me pick my own colors, and I couldn't make up my mind, so they just did both, Philip said happily. Much better than my old livery. Yes, you look like a proper engine now, said Thomas. Thanks. Anyways, I'd better get to work, since that's what proper engines do. Philip winked and rolled away. Thomas just rolled his eyes, chuckling quietly to himself. Philip is a much happier engine now. He works hard and always keeps his mind focused on the task at hand. He still likes to tease the other engines, but it's always in a fun, joking manner. The other engines at first thought Philip looked quite strange with his bright colors, but soon started to grow jealous and wanted special colors of their own. Now, I don't know about y'all, said Hank one night to the others, but in my humble opinion, I would look mighty fine in blue.